38 years, give or take. And to see this kind of humidity in March is not common. To see this much lightning in these storms is just... I can tell you this, I could probably count on two hands barely how many times I'd seen lightning living most of my life on the West Coast. You just don't see this kind of weather. And then, like, in the first 2 weeks of living in Kansas, because I moved to Kansas May 12th, 2018. And in the first week, I saw more lightning in Kansas than I had seen in my whole life. So that's to put in perspective for people. When people are like, why are you, I took a lot of heat today about making too big of a deal of this. And I just kept saying that you don't understand that native Oregonians and Washingtonians, there we go, sorry, rough one already. So they have, it's just, it's so few and far between that when you get a dangerous setup like the NWS is predicting, I'm looking at this cluster of storms just southeast of Centralia, going over Morton right now. Morton's seeing just a heck of a lightning storm right now. So, getting struck by lightning is a terrible way to die. Tornadoes, another one. Flooding, another one. Believe it or not, just automobile accidents in this weather, and we're entering rush hour, or pretty much have been in rush hour now. So it's just dangerous. It's a dangerous situation. And that is why I sounded the proverbial horns. And I knew I was going to take... I knew I couldn't please everybody on this one. And I knew that east of the Rockies was going to have an opinion. And I simply just had to tune it out for those west of the Rockies, because that's what matters tonight, is those in the path. So from Tacoma down to Eugene, Oregon, that's Tacoma, Washington, down to Eugene, Oregon, you are in a severe bubble that's been warned for the next 3 and just under a half hours, 60 miles an hour wind, 2 to 2.5 inch hail. So be prepared. That's a golf ball. Golf ball coming from 30,000 feet. It's not fun. So, lightning again is going to be a situation. And then, of course, tornado threat is always abundantly there whenever we have these conditions. And right now, every storm just changed their tracks. Literally, every storm just went straight. So that tells me that the instability is definitely playing a factor here. So, got to be on the lookout. It is definitely going to be a real deal situation. This is going to be a mini tornado. So for those who don't know, the area that we're patrolling, because I know there's a lot of people that follow and are going, I have no clue. I've never heard of these places. The Willamette Valley is where it's literally about 45, 50 miles wide by about, I'd say 200 miles. That might be a little long, but if you're going into Washington, we'll call it 200 miles long. It's a miniature alley like the Midwest. It is in between two massive one pretty good massive mountain range in the Cascades, and the Coast Range is definitely a large, it's got tectonic plates and the earthquakes happen out there, so we'll call that a pretty decent mountain range. It's this valley. I actually grew up there. It's this valley that's right here in the middle of just two large and when the conditions are just perfect like this for these kind of storms, it's a miniature tornado alley. And there's a couple spots that have traditionally gotten tornadoes. And I was behind one in 2010 in Almsville. It was my first tornado ever in 2010. It was an EF2, and it went right through the town. And I was right behind on the rain wrap side, coming back from Corvallis, and just happened to get right behind it. And I didn't understand radar even remotely enough to read it at the time. I was just following what I couldn't believe was this cloud that was touching the ground and looked to be a tornado, but I couldn't see anything to it didn't have that definitive, Southern Plains wedge, but I knew there was something in it. And then it wasn't long after that we heard that it went through Almsville and did a lot of damage. And so that was my first one. And now here I sit 13 years later calling out a potential weather event in the same area it's kind of surreal, to be honest with you. So I really hope this is a giant bust, as we call it, when the storms don't perform. Nothing would make me happier, but I am so concerned that tonight is going to overperform. There is a giant, I'll show you, I just posted this. This is about an hour's old radar, but you get the gist. I mean, it's just a big old scorpion tail. Look at that thing coming at the west coast. I mean, that's essentially just a large tornado in its own right. So, you know, there's so many factors here that we're doing our best here to cover for folks here. This is pre-coverage right now. We just have the first go around of storms that are coming through, but soon these are going to start getting severe, and these are going to start getting rated, and we're going to start being right on top of these. But right now we're just showing you guys kind of the pre-storm. A lot of lightning right now, so certainly stay indoors. 13 million people are going to be affected by this, so it's going right up and down the I-5 corridor, which is the major corridor of population for both states. So it's a concerning factor. So I was saying this earlier, there's some traditional areas that historically have gotten tornadoes in Oregon and in Washington. And the Southern Valley, where I grew up, the South Central Valley, is called the Willamette Valley. I grew up in a rural area. Half my childhood was up in Seattle in a very non-rural setting, the opposite. And then the second half of my childhood was down in Oregon, and then I stayed there throughout my adult life and raised kids and had family. That area traditionally gets tornado-warned storms. There's certain pockets. And so we're covering those areas. We've got chasers strategically located. One right now outside of Brownsville, another one outside of Mount Angel, and then the third one up by Longview, Washington. So we've got them spread out from top to bottom, trying to give you guys the best. And then I'm out here, obviously, in Pennsylvania, kind of just DJing the whole event. At some point, Ginger will have us all together, so hold tight. Okay, so Ashley's got a storm coming from the west. She's going live here shortly. Mike is up by Mount Angel. He's got the one coming by Malala. So he's going to be in some pretty good lightning here shortly. So everybody, this should be kicking off here in just a moment. And then Ian, I believe, the great thing about the 360. Can I show you guys something? Hold on, I better be careful on this. So this is tonight's art. Well, just like that, I fat fingered it. This is our chasers tonight, strategically located across the Willamette Valley. So you can see this is the valley I was talking about. You see how it's right between. Here's the mountain ranges that are green, and then there's this just like I said, a little slice in the Midwest right there. And this is where right where the SPC put a 5% today. So we've got 3